Welcome to Mark's Headroom, episode 14. It's Black Friday, November 28th, 2025. And today may be an abbreviated episode. I've just traveled from the Ozarks back to Austin today, or yesterday, and just set up my studio here after being away for about 10 days. And I'm running late. I'm usually eating by now. And if you haven't seen this before, I've been doing 5-day fast, eating 2 days and then repeating. Been doing that for, around 5 years now. So, and I like what I'm doing here with this YouTube channel, and I'm putting this out on Substack also, is, and posting some clips on TikTok even. What I'm doing is just kind of talking off my head. That's why I call it Mark's Headroom, not Mac's Headroom, like the guy in the 80s. But anyway, here I am. And a fascinating discussion I had earlier today with a family member, reflecting on our heritage and what's going on in society today. Actually, there's about 3 family members that I've discussed this with today, and kind of bounced it off some other people that I have some respect for. And it's interesting when you have people around you that have also gone through trauma. I've gone through 2 near-death experiences and suffered a number of other incidents in early childhood that I've spent a long time recovering from. And it's one thing to survive the trauma, and then if you know what happens when most people recover from that trauma, a lot of times they'll just, kind of pick up a new or an old pattern. But there's a few of us that end up finding a way into this abyss, into the nothingness, and taking our time, or something is allowing us to spend some time in reformulating ourselves, and in kind of measuring what we really want and what we really would prefer not to have from the life that we may or may not have some recollections of post-trauma. So if I look around me today, I see the news that's going on right now are some isolated incidents that are being really highlighted for our attention. And if you really think about what happens every day, there's murders and suicides and tragedies that hit probably 8 billion people know what I'm talking about. And it's something that is unique to any period in time. But what I see happening is a narrative being construed or kind of made up, woven, is spoken to, that casts, the news headline issue and exaggerates it into a level of despair, almost like if you've ever come across somebody running away from a fire and is on the other side of the hill, they'll be yelling at you to, go, we need to protect ourselves. We're all going to die. Like the pending fire that's coming on, over the hill is going to consume us all. And maybe in some cases where you've been through trauma or you've survived some of these things in life, you learn not to react to that, but to try to look up over the hill and get more information about what's really happening over there. And, if you think about the number of like school shootings that we've had, and then we've also had some, like the attempt on, or the apparent attempt on the president's life when he was rerunning for office. Um, everyone wants to talk about Charlie Kirk and has an opinion about that. And then the two service people who were assassinated, or at least one, I think at this moment, the last I heard, only one of the two had died. But these incidents and even others that it's not necessary for me to bring into this right now, um, are creating a a sense of urgency and exaggerating the some political positions, and in essence, maybe even some religious positions. But the fundamental thing at the human level is they're creating a sense of threat, based on an incident, and then exaggerating that threat as being cast against, a religious or a political or a national or a community level threat that creates a very unsafe condition in the individual. And an individual that is not prepared or educated or experienced or has not adjusted from similar types of game. I mean, it could be, I'm not saying it's necessarily true or false, but if you don't have that ability to examine reality in your own body, in your own mind, in your own holistic system as a human being, and examine it to make sense of it, then these um, messages could be being used by advertisers or politicians or religious people, have historically been used to vie for your vote, your attention, your dollar, and your time and energy. And that bothers me. And it doesn't bother me for, I guess the main reason it bothers me is that I don't like seeing people taken advantage of. And I do look for the chance or opportunity for justice to be served. And, we I think one of our fundamental um, core essence desires is liberty. And that's different than freedom. Freedom is kind of an end state. It's like, you know, uh, it's static. Freedom is something that already exists. But liberty is a word that involves process. And I've been doing some study on freedom versus liberty and those two words. And the reason liberty is a word that I like is that it casts the current state that you're at in your life or my life or whoever's hearing. It's a very individual place where we construct our own prison or our idea of what freedom is, and the movement between those two, where we're at in the often the prison that we've constructed that says I can't do this or I can't do that, or that's only for those kind of people, or only these kind of people can have that kind of thing. those are constructs in our mind, and those are places that um, you can find, kind of where you're at in terms of your own, liberating yourself from those things that you were born into or feel have been cast upon you by your community or your circumstances. And I feel like, um, that's where we're very vulnerable. And, if you're one of the 99% that, are kind of living in the bubbles created by the 1% of, wealth on the earth. I mean, there's a few of us that are really truly operating independently, kind of like as mystics, and I'm trying to speak to that here in Mark's Headroom, in my Transcendent YouTube channel and Substack, and also in my Future Wise Energy YouTube channel and Substack, and some of the writings and the new book series that I share on roachcreative.com. Um, is a way to liberate yourself from the prisons that you may have been born into, or that you've been encouraged to participate in reconstructing for yourself and your life, as well as for the next generation. And ultimately, that's what I I would like to create a platform for us to be able to connect. And, for those of us that have been through trauma and are trying to recover, and in that state of recovery form, not into a desperate survival um, pattern that may not necessarily serve our best long-term interest, but tell people that this is okay. It may take a little bit of time, and it may feel a little uncomfortable, or it may feel a lot uncomfortable depending upon where you're starting. But just like what I've done with the fasting is I've integrated into a lifestyle, and I'm not living like a monk, and I'm involved in life and with others in my community and outside of my community, and have an online, presence. And it's, I don't pursue balance as a target. But when I look back upon where I've landed in how I've really reformed myself over the last 10 years, um, that is kind of the picture that I do see. And that may not be where everyone is going to land in the same place, and that's part of the I wouldn't necessarily call it fun, but that's where the creativity and your uniqueness that you're born, that's in your body and in all your circuitry, that's what makes life, fascinating to me is how we work with that and use it. And ultimately, I think that's where or why, I'm here is to tell people, you can recover from things in life that may not go the way that you were programmed to operate. And in fact, those programs being the source of some suffering whenever things don't work out the way that you were expecting by playing along with that game or that program. Maybe they're telling you that, something about your real spiritual or your soul calling that you're here to do, or maybe even there's just some physical things about you that you prefer and might, want to consider honoring. So that's my short message for today. I'm going to go break my fast, and I'll be back again next week. And I'm just wishing you all the best. Visit my site, roachcreative.com. Check out my Substack and YouTube channel, and I'm even on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you around.